So I just want to let everybody know, if you're watching on YouTube right now, if you're connected right now, we're about to start this off for the next 20 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about crypto. The conversation that I want to have with you, Darius, today is not only just about the 10 principles that make crypto a tool to build wealth, but I really want to talk about the conversation of value. You know, just like me, that there's a lot of people that are in TradFi or traditional finance where they don't understand how digital assets, blockchain technology, and crypto have value. And I want to literally talk a little bit about that right now. So, if the average person wanted to understand crypto, and I'm going to let you get in about 15 seconds, my brother, is because everybody's always like, what is crypto? And basically, to simply give you an explanation, is crypto is digital money, and it works without banks. It works without governments. Instead of money being printed like dollars, it's created and verified using secure technology. Secure technology. And that technology is called blockchain. So basically, think about crypto as internet money. And it's internet money that's fast, right? You can transact, you can send money fast. It's borderless, right? You can send money anywhere in the world. And it's built on coding and not paper. So also think about this. You can use crypto, right? Like cash to buy things. You can use crypto to invest in assets like stocks or real estate. And you can use crypto like gold to store your wealth over time. So if you know this, and you're seeing how big this asset, this sector of business is growing, we want to talk a little bit about, with my brother Darius, about why the average investor is fearful and why they're not investing in that. And what I just said, my brother, is there anything you want to share with that introduction before we go into a more greater think tank about some of the things that we have seen and understand and what we know about crypto? Is there anything you want to kind of share in your introduction about crypto?
Yes, it's that simple. Imagine you had access to something that 4 billion people can buy. Like that's the value of it. Anybody with a cellular device and internet access could buy into cryptocurrency. So sometimes when we measure value, we look at it like, oh, does it have intrinsic value? What can it get me just by being what it is? And instead of looking at the future value, the ability to be worth more in the future, and that's kind of how we need to start thinking about value. It's kind of like the stock market. You know what a stock can give you right now, but your best investments and your biggest returns are going to be your ability to look at something right now and see how valuable it is going to be to the future of just humanity itself. So that's how we have to look at crypto. Uh, right now, crypto has the same amount of users as the internet did in the 1990s. Now imagine it when it comes more online, and you have a billion users, 2 billion users, 3 billion users. That's like evaluating the price of Facebook. When it just only had 10 million users, not too many people had Facebook. You just had people that was going to school, college kids were using Facebook. But when you get to 100 million, 200 million, you have younger kids and having it, high school people having it, and then the a more so mature crowd started to have it. Now you have 3 billion people that has a Facebook account, and the value of Facebook has went up because of that. Because you know we say we don't know anybody who doesn't have a Facebook account. Everybody has a Facebook account, so it's very valuable. People have been able to see the value because the numbers of actual users using it, and that's how you should look at crypto. Right now, you have the ability to get into something that is very early in its development and the number of users. And you can see in the future that the future is digital money. Most people don't even use physical cash anymore. If I told everybody watching this, and it could be 1,000 people, if I told them, come up with 1,001 dollar bills and hand it to me, that probably wouldn't happen because most people have their money in digital forms now. It's all digital. Most money that exists in the system is digital. You look at your bank account, it's digital. You go to pay for something on your phone, you're gonna be paying it digital. So we have to look at where technology is going. We have to look at the ability of its future value. And like I said, it's very similar to the stock market. You know that something has value right now, but can you look to the future and see how value will be in the future? That's why I wanted to add at the beginning.
You know what? That's a great way to look at this technology, and you covered a lot of areas because we know this is your expertise. Like you said, let's go to that banking analogy. Like you said, everything that we're seeing for us with transactions with banking is truly digital right now. And if you know that you're transacting, whether you're sending money through Zelle or Cash App, whether you are um, making payments through Apple Pay and tap, technology, chip technology. Uh, all of these things are digital. The way you receive money right now, nobody, if you're working on a job, is getting paid through traditional, check being sent through the mail. People are really getting money through ACH, automatic clearinghouse, and direct deposit. So if we know this, and this is one of the things that we know that most people always want to have with their money, right? They want to have truly uh, autonomy with their money and ownership over their money. The bank does not give you that because what a lot of people don't understand when you deposit money into the bank, the money is not your money anymore. The money is the bank's money, and they have the ability to lend your money out up to 90%, right, with the reserve ratio requirements. And then basically 10% goes to the FDIC to insure it, just in case there's a run on the bank. So all the bank is doing is a guarantee, basically to house your transactions, to hold your money, right? Because we know that it'd be crazy to hold a bunch of money at your home or safe and to facilitate payments and transactions for you. So we have this with crypto because decentralization, basically you owning and you having the ability to trust and transact who you will, right? Whoever you want to across the world without a middleman, right? You own your money directly, not a bank, not the government, and you can send your money, you can transact, and you can house your money on a digital network without an intermediary, without a bank, right? So you know where your money is, and you don't need a bank for the first time ever digitally, listen to me clearly, digitally to facilitate your transactions or payments for you, you can do that by yourself, right? Darius also said, crypto is still early, so there's tremendous high growth potential. Many coins have seen 10x, 5x, 100x. Darius talked a little bit on the last time about how he invested in various crypto projects and they've done 10, 20, 13x. Also, Darius, I want to get you in this for a little bit about how crypto, especially tokens like uh, Bitcoin, that has a limited supply, that's very scarce in value, right? Like gold, which drives up long-term value. Tell the people really quickly how crypto can protect your money when the dollar loses value to inflation. The simple meaning, how can crypto, specifically coins like Bitcoin, be an inflation hedge? I want you to tell the people for the next 2 to 3 minutes how crypto can be an inflation hedge. If we know that we got to fight inflation for the rest of our lives because the government is going to continue to print more and more money, how can we use crypto to be in hedge against inflation and to protect and to grow our wealth? Can you talk to the people a little bit about that?
Okay. Yeah, just like you said, the government is going to print money. This is something that you've been teaching on Now imagine that, you just have this money sitting there, and just because the government prints more money, you lose buying power on your money. And that's essentially what inflation is. And I was doing some research earlier. Um, Let me read this. It says in the U.S., the M2, which is the money supply, grew by over 40% between the year 2020 and 2023, fueling significant inflation. So I know people over the last, 3, 4 years have seen prices just skyrocket. But imagine 40%, the money supply grew by 40%. That's why we've seen some months where inflation was at 9%. Think about it. Inflation being at 9%, it means you lost 9% uh, of your buying power, in one month. That's like having $100 and then by the end of that month only having $91, and you didn't do anything because of that. Cryptocurrency is a ultimate hedge against inflation, because there's a limited supply. Bitcoins, for example, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin made. So if you know that there's a limited supply, and it will all only exist, and it's very predictable, and it contrasts sharply against the fiat system. This is a limited supply, fixed supply versus an unlimited supply. So that scarcity alone will create value. It'll be more so like what they've been calling it gold, but they've been calling Bitcoin digital gold because it's easier to access. If you wanted to move just uh, $1,000, if you will have it in gold or Bitcoin, you're gonna prefer to have it in Bitcoin just because you don't have to worry about losing it. Our phones are some of the most secure devices, on this planet. Yeah. Um, and then also Bitcoin is, how much the rate of supply is going to be created. That's why they have cycles. They have the Bitcoin halving cycle. So you know that it's not just going to be printed without your knowledge. The government, they're going to print, and it's going to be what it is. We don't go into knowing how much money that the government is going to print, but you can already know how much Bitcoin there is ever going to be exist. And then, yeah, I just wanted to show you how it's being used more than ever now. I just want to highlight something that happened today in New Hampshire. The governor of New Hampshire decided to declare um, that their state will be able to buy Bitcoin. Now, imagine most people are maybe not even paying attention to that news that happened, but New Hampshire is the first state to allow this to happen. In politics, it's kind of a copycat system to where people look at what's happening in one state. If it's working for them, they will follow on. So going forward today, more states will be allowing this to happen because they're going to see the value of what Bitcoin actually is, and they're going to be copycats. And so potentially, you'll have all 50 states be buying into the same thing that you can buy in. Like imagine that. Uh, Not only that, it's a good investment, that you have the governments and state governments are buying into it as well. So if they can see the value in it as a state, you can see the value in it, and you have the opportunity to purchase the same exact resource.
That's a tremendous outlook. One of the things that you talked about is just like understanding value about an asset. Um, we talked a little bit about how people only think physical money creates value, right? Because especially people who really banked in or just basically lived in a traditional finance mindset and way of life. A lot of people only grew up handling cash, right? And basically imagining money as being just digital is really something hard for a lot of people to concept. Um, we talked a little bit about, majority of dollars today are already digitals. You look at your bank account, you're looking at digital numbers. You're looking at your crypto, excuse me, your stock portfolio account is just digital numbers, right? So I think we really have to have that conversation about, value isn't physical. Value is based on trust and use. And that goes to just basically education, financial education, because we know that in traditional finance, majority of schools, high schools, don't teach about banking, don't teach about money, don't teach about inflation or how investing work. And if you don't understand how the dollar loses value over time, you won't see how crypto is a powerful alternative. Me and you, Darius, we know how this works, so we can see that it's a powerful alternative. But if people don't understand how the dollar loses value, they're going to think that, like we see people going to say crypto is a scam or used by criminals, or there's going to be, scare tactics, and they're not going to understand that crypto is just a tool. The internet is a tool. Traditional finance is a tool, and it's a tool being used for innovation. It's a tool being used for investment. And, just like people think that banks provide safety, which is one of the biggest fallacies, right? We know banks can freeze accounts, they can charge hidden fees, they can inflate currencies, right? Different spreads. If you want to, go get euro, if you want to go get Argentine peso, they can inflate those spreads, right? So crypto gives us financial freedom because, um, where institutions may try to take more of the top, skim from you, and crypto is putting the power back in your hand. Like I do have a crypto, ATM where when I go out of town, when I go to different countries, I usually use my crypto ATM, right? I put it in a stable coin, and then I usually just go to an ATM and take the money out. And it gives me the money in any other currency that I'm in, so whether it's euro or the yuan or excuse me, the renminbi or the Hong Kong dollar, or whatever, wherever I'm at. So that's an opportunity that we didn't have years before. So the last thing I want to talk about, and we got to do when you have some time, Darius, to do a 1 hour conversation with this. I want to really do a 1 hour conversation. Tell the people a little bit about how powerful our uh, not only decentralized finance system is for us with crypto, but tell people a little bit of the difference between what price and value is, because I think a lot of people think price equals value, right? So, like if Bitcoin would drop, they would say, well, Bitcoin dropped 40%, or it went down from 90 to 50,000. Bitcoin don't have value. But tell people a little bit about how value comes from utility. As people begin to keep using this asset, as people begin to keep building on it, as people begin to keep transacting on it, it's creating more and more value for Bitcoin and other cryptos alike. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes or however much time that you need to explain. We're going to give you all the time that you need, and then we're going to close out with that. I really want you, because you really have an understanding of the space about value in the crypto space. So I just want you to tell all the watchers, the listeners who are going to be listening to this about the value of this asset.
Yes, it made me think of an analogy. Have you ever had a dollar bill, an old dollar bill, and it rips in half? Can you use that dollar bill anymore?
Nope.
They won't they won't let you use it, even though the value the price is the same price, but the value has changed. So that's an example of how price doesn't necessarily equal value. The value of this technology is incredible. This is for the first time that we have the technology through Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that we, as individual citizens, have the right to be our own bank. The value on that is incredible. There is no real price. The price of Bitcoin isn't even worth that yet. So basically, that allows you. Uh, let's talk about the globe. If you want to do direct transactions with somebody in China, even though uh, the U.S. and China don't agree right now. You can still do that transactions without them stopping you. Uh, they don't have the power to stop you doing that transaction. So that's a priceless, you know, technology. Uh, I know me and you, we have international investments. Imagine if we want to do a transaction with somebody on the continent, the African continent. The United States and Africa don't really do too much when it comes to trade, but this is for the first time in history that we can trade directly with, you know, our people on the continent without the government being involved. Like I said, that is priceless. You can't put a price on that, and the value of that is just crazy. It is something that, and it's a funny. There's a quote that says, some people know the price of everything, but they don't know the value of anything. So sometimes we lack the insight of seeing the value of something, and it usually ends up costing us. It's like opportunity cost. We imagine if you know you had opportunity to invest into Bitcoin in 2011, but you didn't see the value of it. It cost you, even though the price of it has changed from, you know, being something around $1 to now being close to $100,000 again. That may have affected you when it comes to the price, but that value is you would have had freedom. If we all could have invested in Bitcoin at around uh, 2011, we would have our freedom. We would, and you'd always discuss that money is a tool to actually buy your own freedom, to have uh, freedom and autonomy to do whatever you need to do. People can't put a price on that, and that's super valuable. And when it comes to the crypto space, it's still an opportunity for, if you invest the right amount in the right crypto over the next 10 years, you can buy your freedom. You can not only escape just and working for somebody else, but you could be autonomous. You could be your own bank. You can really be a sovereign individual without having any controls. You can go around the world, spend your own money without anybody uh, saying anything against you. You can really just live the life that you want to live, and I think that's the goal of why we teach. We want to teach and allow people to see themselves as having the ability to break the change and have the freedom and to escape this reality while where we exchange our time for money. You know, I think that's uh, what got you to teaching it. I know that's what it got for me to teaching it. And like you said, that value, if I could do that for some of these people and teach these people that's just priceless. And what I really wanted to say when it comes to the technology, our people have to understand that technology can be used for anything. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad, but not knowing how to use technology will leave you behind. Like think about it for the workers, in the 80s when the computers came in, and the people who didn't know how to use a computer, they were, some of these people lost their jobs. They weren't able to adapt and change to the environment that we in. And that's another reason why that we should be looking at cryptocurrency, because we have already changed into an environment where we're not using physical money. Like, imagine if, you know, and just how unsafe it is. If I would just say like, oh yeah, I have $50,000 in a safe at home, and most people will say like, "Oh, why do you have that much money in your house? That's very unsafe for you to store it." Now, if you go on your phone and you have that amount of money on your phone, nobody even looks at you differently. They'll look at it and like, okay, that's nice. They wouldn't even think about the security issue it is of having that much money on your cellular device. So we don't even acknowledge the security that technology provides. So it's another thing to just go with life and go through life without acknowledging the things that actually make your life a little bit better. When you do that, you get left behind. So I think that's another reason why people should look at cryptocurrency as a whole. Just the security. I would say, just 10 to 15 years ago, most people didn't use banking apps. Everything that they needed, especially when it comes to a bank, they would have to go to a physical location and, go do the transactions. But now, and just over the last, 10 years or so, you have banks with digital apps. You have just digital banks. They don't really have physical locations. So we have to acknowledge that technology is changing around us, and we should be wanting to invest in those changes. Now, specifically, when it comes to crypto, there's some things you need to know when you're getting into the crypto space. You know, I always tell people to start off with Bitcoin because it is the most secure, the most backed by regulation and legislation crypto that you can have. A lot of people are looking for that 100x. They're looking to turn $100 into $1 million. Now, if you did your research and you've been looking into what we've been saying and taking it into consideration, you can chance that on something that you believe in. But if you just purchase Bitcoin, regularly and do that for the next 5 to 10 years, you can still have your freedom. I know sometimes we want things overnight and we see other people's success and think we should be attaining that at the same time, but we never know what people went through to get that success. Most people won't know how many hours that you've been put into the stock market. This is something that you've been doing by yourself, before you were 18. So even me and myself, like a lot of people want to know how much, how they want to invest in crypto, but most people won't even put in just 2 hours to watch a video on crypto to learn it. And I've put in hundreds of hours of watching videos, and I still might not make 100x this go around when it comes to the crypto cycle. So it's not always necessarily uh, that you're not doing your job as an investor to invest in the right things. It's also more about research, and when it comes to crypto and just the technology of it, once you get into it, it'll open up your mindset of how you want to be an investor. Uh, just the freedom that this technology brings may even change your way of being an investor. I know it changed my way of how I thought about being an investor, and I think these are some of the things that you should look at when it comes to looking in crypto. Just knowing that the paradigm shift is happening, knowing that the technology is already changing around you. It's just about acknowledging that and then wanting to invest in that, finding the value regardless of the price.
That's so profound, understanding about value regardless of price, because it's just, and it's why we realize that people are easily sold the fantasy more than the real thing. We talked a little bit about this on one of our think tanks on Saturday, is that if you tell a person, you can make them $1 million, they might be even more inclined to invest in you because that's their dream. But if you tell a person, hey, give me 1,000, I can make you, $100, they're like, well, $100 don't seem that sexy. It don't really seem like that's great enough earnings potential for me. But understanding that this asset that we have, Darius said something very important. You may not have the wisdom or the tools to be able to get that 100x, but you can make the habits of studying and research in this particular market. Start buying Bitcoin right now, no matter the price, right? Because there's a built-in market, there's a built-in demand for it. Start learning as much as you can learn about digital assets, blockchain, Bitcoin, layer ones, altcoins, all these different things that's out there. You can go to YouTube. You don't have to read a book. You can go to YouTube and, like Darius said, invest hours upon hours every day consuming content to educate you, to bring you forward into this new wave of technology. And I promise you that if you do that, you're going to make money in this market. You're going to make money in the crypto markets. You're going to make money in this crypto sector. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about the strategies on how to invest in crypto. We don't have enough time today. I want to thank my brother Darius Green again for another wonderful session, staying with us for an hour. We're going to open up the chat, not tonight, but we're going to open it up in our Instagram. And so if you have a question for Darius in YouTube, please send it in the comments. If you have a question for Darius in Instagram, please go to our Instagram at Next Gen Capital Club. It's going to be a link in our bio in this video. You'll be able to see it on YouTube. You'll be able to connect. And any question you have for him or me, if you say for Darius, just put for Darius. If it's for me, put it for me. And we'll both be able to answer it in the chat. I thank again my brother Darius for joining, all the watchers who came in, popped in on us and watched live, and also for those who are going to be watching it in the future. Thank you all you guys again. We're gonna do introduction to crypto part 2 probably next week. We're gonna get Darius to come back if he's not busy and explain a whole overview on some of the macroeconomic environment, but really giving you a foundation for the first 30 minutes and then kind of telling you what to look for in the crypto market. So we thank you again for joining us, and we're gonna sign off for now and be back next week on every Tuesday,
Yes,
7
sir.
p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. on the West Coast. All right, guys, you have a good night.